Thank you.
I was trying to stay.
Brother.
All right, awesome.
I was trying to.
Welcome, everyone. I've got 401. Thank you for your time today. This is our August meeting of the Downtown Advisory Board. Calling to order. We want to look at the agenda. First up on the agenda is to look at the minutes from last month's meeting. And this is where we'd review those minutes and entertain any changes or a motion to approve the minutes as scheduled.
I thought the minutes were excellent, so I moved to approve them.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Joe. Nancy and Joe in the first and second. All those in favor?
I.
Any opposed? Thank you. Approve the minutes are approved. Next up, do we have anyone in the room or on the call for public comment?
Debbie's TBA now.
Okay. All right, and we'll go forward. The agenda is right in front of you all. We're looking at just to go over that agenda, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented and make changes.
I move we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Patsy and John, first and second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Agenda is approved. All right, staff and team reports.
All right, our
Take it away.
staff and team reports do have a few items for some discussion. So I've got those marked as really anything is. But just a couple of general updates. So we had the city council meeting, the city council workshop regarding multiple items, but the item that we had was the towing at special events. And so myself and Lieutenant Cantwell reviewed what the current practice is for closing the street and for towing. And a few updates that have been adjusted because of the feedback. They've tried to get the tow trucks to come in quicker. It's not always necessarily worked. We talked about this with Garden Jubilee. The tow truck was supposed to come at 2, it didn't come till 2:45. There's just a lot of things that are out of our control. But as one of the most efficient closures that we've had, it still took about 1 hour and 45 minutes to fully close the street down before vendors would come. So we reviewed that with city council, and the direction from city council was to keep with the way that we're currently doing it as best as we can. It's not going to be able to shorten the times that we have for the ones which are problem ones for a lot of businesses, the Christmas parade and Halloween. Just because logistically, there's not going to be a way to shorten the time for the closure we've got for that. Is that direct council? And then I put the link for the recording of that meeting. If you want. Last month I brought up about non-compliant signs. The ones on 7th Avenue cleared up.
How about Main Street?
We've sent notification to the businesses on Main Street, and we did it a couple of weeks ago. Or I sent just personal emails to them, and I hadn't heard back from anybody. And I've been out off and on, and so I'm not sure if that's been something that's been cleared up.
What happens if they don't?
I'm not sure what that.
Asking, but.
Lou, do you know what the?
When we started enforcing signs, we would remove the signs and hold on.
When? I mean, you said when you start, when?
So I'd be talking with Jamie about when she feels like she's had conversations. People can notify.
How many businesses?
On Main Street, I think that I had contacted, I think there were 3 that have been persistently problem ones. And it's really just the ones that are on the side streets. And I can understand why they'd want to do it, but we did invest that money into putting those new corner signs out. The only one where we don't have a corner sign we've been given some leniency is the Boho Hendo on 6, because I'm getting a sign made for that. And so we told the other ones for a while that we'll give you a break until we put these new signs in, and we've done that for a while. So I have not, none of them have replied back to me on Main Street. 7th, however, was wonderful. They got theirs cleared up very quickly.
And Locust, yeah.
Yes. So moving on community character. Did you want to talk any on this, or you want me just to kind of?
So I'll do the lead in for you. So we did not meet last week. It looks like, to share with you all, we have an update regarding dining or outdoor furniture, and I'll let you take that away.
Yeah. So I've got just kind of a general update from it since the committee did not meet, and we didn't meet because I was out of town. But so the committee's met in several months now and talked about benches for 7th Avenue with a varying degree of opinion on it. And what the opinion, so we were reviewing between, and I've showed it to y'all before, because 7th Avenue is a creative edge, a type of bench that can be incorporated and also public art for the street. Because 7th Avenue is not going to have the space that will allow for like bears on the street like Main Street has. There's just not the space for that, and furniture and trash cans and sidewalk dining, and not getting hit by a car or on a race. And so.
And bike racks.
Yeah, and bike racks. Yeah, there's just a lot going on 7th, and it just doesn't have the real estate as far as sidewalk space on 7th. And so then I had been approached by a company that does these benches that are made out of recycled wind turbines that can also be public art pieces. And I don't have this pulled up, but I can pull it up. We've gone through it several times, and the rub from some of the committee members on those particular benches were that they, the manufacturer can only make them, the 5 feet is basically the shortest length that they could be. They're backless. Again, I'll pull the picture. And so that was the primary concern.
And I think the cost was pretty, because they are quite expensive. I mean,
Yeah, but part of the reason why I'm looking now is because I think if they can be incorporated as public art, they would be able to, we'd have some funding opportunities that make up for that.
well, you mentioned, if I can add to that, that you said you'd get someone who did a bear. Who's going to choose who gets to paint it if we do go with that bench? How do you figure, that's like how public art's going to work probably in the future, once you determine how those are chosen.
So ultimately, that's, let me get through, and then we can decide on if that's a way we want to proceed or not, because either way, I just need to move ahead. on
The biggest positive of those is they fit into the vibe down there, and there's no maintenance, and you're not gonna need to repair them like ones we have on Main Street.
And just so we take this one step at a time, we're gonna let Jamie finish, but what we're proposing here, the recommendation is start with one bench. This is a pilot bench to see how this looks, how it works, and then go from there. But this is a bench that's designed, incorporate a public art component to it that is definitely expandable and would be appropriate for the district, so.
Yeah. With the feedback from the committee members on the concern on the length of the bench, they did send some, we had people send examples. The examples are ones that they're like shorter, like metal type benches, or there's a variety of benches that are backless that are shorter that we can consider. But really, as I was looking through all of it, it really comes down to if our priority is to have benches that can be incorporated as public art within the district, or benches that are 4 feet long. And so if the priority is a shorter bench from the board, then that's fine. It's just, there's not a lot of options. It would probably end up being a bench that's similar to what we have on Main Street, just backless. And so it took a while to come to not much of a conclusion with the committee. And so what I'd like to propose, like what Matthew was saying, is that the Friends of Downtown can purchase one of them. And we can see if we like it, and we can determine an artist to design it, paint it, and put it on the street. If we don't like it, we'll put it in another location.
Do you have images of that bench design for us to look at?
They just sent me one that would have a rendering.
And just so that this board knows, the community character team, there was some disagreement about bench design and style. But there was not disagreement among the team about whether we're having furniture or not. So,
I mean, I know we went through, how many benches did we ultimately figure we might be able to fit? 2 on that's or 3?
no, we allocated
I know we did
probably 6 or 7 spots that would have been appropriate for benches on both sides of the street. Absolutely, yeah. I want to say 5 at minimum that were considered priority locations, and then there were other locations that could have been secondary as well. So,
if we like this, it's
I mean, if the idea is
5 times.
that we're presenting, or city staff is recommendation is to do one of these benches as a pilot design.
I don't have it. So these were the design, the type that are moving for buying one. But we would be getting.
No, that's not.
We would be getting.
Committee said it.
Yosemite. Cool.
Yeah,
So some of the things to consider if we're looking at pricing, guys, because it is, I mean, $4,000 for a bench. First of all, this material, the turbine itself, the bottom hoop portion, that would be primered and ready for painting. So to incorporate public art, whether it's sponsorship, like you have with the Bears, obviously there's a revenue stream potential there. And also the lifespan of these benches, there basically is no maintenance costs. There's no maintenance costs. They have a very long natural lifespan to them. So that is a factor.
Well,
as
you have a photograph. That would be cool to see. Oh, you don't have one in place somewhere by any chance?
not of this one. So this is how it would look with the public art incorporated, just kind of rendering for that. It would be, these are more lower profile, and so it wouldn't be very visible as some of the other ones, but it would have that backless seating. And for the cost, and the reason I want to kind of move ahead with it is, every quarter, there's a T-Mobile grant that we have the ability to apply for. That would be, we can get the one, see if we like it, but then we can apply for funding for benches. But I don't feel like it would be a very strong application if we're just applying for benches, 4-foot backless benches that look like they went on Main Street. But if it's more of a public art program, I think it would be a stronger application.
Does it have to have if it was a T-Mobile grant, would it have to have T-Mobile on it?
No, they do, it's not specifically for benches, it's just a public space.
And you said these come apart, that's how you're able to create the art.
I believe they
I don't know how they did it.
that way, yeah, I think there's videos on that.
Yeah, they would be shipped in panels. 5
5
foot,
feet.
5.
5 feet.
So some of the discussion was about, well, maybe we want a 4-foot bench because that's a little bit less conducive to reclining or sleeping. And, if this manufacturer does not make a 4-foot bench, the shortest bench they make there is the 5-foot bench. I personally don't want to have an argument for a foot bench.
I don't think it was that as much as if it should be, if it's a long bench, if you had that railing where you see on some benches, where to make them seats versus, you know what I'm talking about, just the armrest.
And
Yeah, at a 4 feet, 5 feet, that's.
so, and also
not
so that, this board understands like the role of community character, especially when applied to 7th Avenue, is that we've had a template here to think outside the box and do things differently. And, the whole idea from the beginning, when the city really, kind of took 7th Avenue in, was to create 2 vibrant, distinct, unique downtown districts that comprise downtown. So this may not be traditional, it's not obtrusive, it's very low profile. It incorporates a public art concept, which we've been talking heavily about, public art policy in downtown and what that looks like going forward. So for me, in my And my email for, agreeing with the staff recommendation was that this was a win-win. I mean, it's one bench, it fits the landscape, it doesn't take away from the sightlines of the businesses that are down there, the landscaping that we have. And then, of course, the public art, incorporation, and that I think is just a win-win, so.
Where will it go since it's the first one?
So we have to do the walk again, but I think one of the prime locations was up near the crosswalk there, somewhere in that mid-block crosswalk.
Yeah, that would probably be the best place.
So, and and again, this bench is situated, right up, not right on the street, but relatively close to the street. So it's pretty visible, even though it's a little profile, it's pretty visible. So as far as, we don't need to have a conversation about, who's going to be using the bench that we don't want to use the bench. You know what I mean? And this is a public piece of furniture for the public to use and enjoy. And we've had, the upper block of 7th Avenue for some can be a long block. So to have a spot mid-block to stop and rest, is completely appropriate. So,
And I, to what Kathy had asked before about picking the artist, I had proposed getting one of our bear artists that's done well over the years and letting them do it because, but if there's other opinions on that, we can do something else. I don't want to get into a prolonged.
That is truly a problem when you do public art and you want to, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, if it's a one time and we want to see how it looks. But that's the question you'll have to answer, if you decide to do 4 or 5 of them, how do you pick the art?
Yeah, and I think if we can do one at a pilot and then we can kind of just have, it's gonna take a while to even get the one here. So there's gonna be time on that, but I would be concerned if we have too much back and forth on how many meetings it might take to pick the artist. For
That's what you do when you get public art though, Jamie.
right, well, that's gonna be part of our public art.
multiple meetings to make a decision.
That'll be definitely part of our evolving the new public art policy as well. So, but find one that we can use for pilot. I think staff has the resources of artists that they've worked with, that they have a good rapport with over the years, to come up with one to start. And then going forward, that's part of our public art policy.
Betsy, was there like you're trying to stick with in the public art realm?
What did you say?
Is there a theme you're trying to?
Well, I mean, there's a theme for the creative side of, 7th, and I'm just saying, public art is public art, and if we're gonna have a public art policy, you ought to maybe experiment how to pick art with this one, and it's gonna take a while to order it, so we have time to,
That'd be the community.
because if it's public art, we should try to figure out how it works with some kind of commission or committee or something.
So that can be on the community character committee.
Yeah, community character, look at that next month's meeting with recommendations from you, whatever.
Yeah, but we could
Community character.
put a call to our bear artists of interest, and then the community character committee can review that. As
It
a,
has to be carefully monitored, because we can go way back where we let public art go a long time ago.
yes, I know.
And they didn't listen to anything that was told to them, and they did their own thing.
Is there a ongoing maintenance component to art part?
No, they put like a ceiling on it.
Like they do for the Bears, probably.
Yeah, so it would be similar, the bears are public art, while they're installed, obviously, but. So there would be no maintenance with that, and then no maintenance to the bench itself. Which I was surprised too, about the maintenance costs, even with the furniture that's on Main Street.
Yeah, and we can, and by getting one, we'll be able to really see that in Public Works and take a look at it in person and see. And then if it doesn't work for 7th Avenue, there's plenty of other places that could
Are
use
you
it.
gonna try to auction them off then?
No. They're just saying there.
Do you know,
Wouldn't want the 400,000.
no, that would be too evident. Lightweight. How long has this company been in business? I mean, because they say they're low maintenance, I'm just wondering how much experience they have with them.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna know until we pilot one and see how it goes.
I will say, I have talked to some people on 7th Ave about this, including Matt, and Matt's obviously a huge proponent of it, but there are some people that are very against this style, as was mentioned earlier. They have different opinions why, whatever they are, but I just wanted to make sure the other side was heard as well, because I talked about 3 people that were like we should not get these, they're too expensive, they're gonna take too long to come in. There were a couple ideas of why to go against it. Obviously, I don't have a huge stake in the game. Matt has put a lot of time and effort into it, same as well as Jamie has. But I just wanted to make sure that we all knew that there are some people that are very much against this.
That was maybe some businesses or something.
There wasn't
You don't have to
anybody.
name anybody, I'm just.
Well, like I said before, among the committee, there was some disagreement about design style. And that was purely aesthetic from that disagreement.
It was on size.
Size
That was-
and.
Well, and
also-
style.
And also style and to a lesser extent.
And I mean,
Well,
it's
So-
real obvious that Jamie and Matthew are very, very pro this. Well, it's creative, it's new, and so is Nancy, yeah. It's creative, it's new, it's different, and Seventh Avenue looks totally different from Main Street, so I certainly understand the argument of,
I'm for it because there has been a strong push from Seventh Avenue businesses and the Community Character Committee to have public art. They've asked, can we have bears? Can we have some flying bears? And there is not the space to do it. And so this is the way I can figure out that could be a combination of that. But if we don't want it, and we don't want that physical public art there, we can get regular benches. And it'll cost the same.
bears,
But we,
no benches, but I'm just kidding, I'm not taking.
there's no benches.
I think we definitely need benches and stuff.
Yeah.
There needs to be places for people. I mean, start walking up and down Seventh Ave, even though it's not as long as Main Street. We have to consider people that can't make that whole walk, or during the summer, they wanna be able to sit down.
Mhm.
So we definitely need seating, and we can't rely on the business owners to provide those seatings outside of their customers.
I mean, I, being down on Seventh Avenue, agree that there should be some types of seating. I just don't think it needs to be real comfortable seating for long periods of time.
I can tell you that's not very comfortable.
Yeah.
That's not comfortable,
And that's why we want to purchase one
yeah.
to pilot, just so we can.
Saturday, when I was at the market, you know, that little brick pillars that come up at the end of there was people sitting on those all along there. And so there's a definite need for seating. And I think we have two settings there. We have the one area by the pavilion, and then we have Seventh Avenue, and they've two totally different settings, two different feelings. Seventh is the artist, that vibe there, and this is the train station vibe. There's two different settings, and we've got to treat them as two settings.
Well, and it's also a dynamic that changes greatly one day a week. So these are all things that Community Character has been talking about, we're very much aware of. There's a bigger picture, that's why we're not rushing into saying, hey, we want to buy 9 benches and put them everywhere. Because as the district kind of continues to unfold to us, we're seeing like, what would be a better long-term solution to seating and when and where that seating is available. But for right now, just to get this out there, because I mean, the timeline, like if you made a call, like we made a call today, what are we looking at, like 6 months before we have something? Or a little bit less,
I think it was like,
before we have something out there?
6, 8 weeks, 2 months, something like that, to get one.
For the bench and then the painting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the painting can
So
take
they
anywhere
probably
between.
all just white.
You can get them either the white as primed, or there's just like like they come as just solid colors, so,
Matte black.
Mhm.
yeah.
When you're talking public art, and I'm just asking because I don't know, are you saying that then some local artist has to put the public art factor into it, or is it? When I ask about a theme, is it something that you say, from art, we would like to see this in this neighborhood? Where you buy something that looks like what you're thinking of art, or is it something that an artist would literally have to draw or do?
I think, and again, in Community Character, public art is something that has been relatively new in the discussions. It's very much first and foremost on the agenda for that team. But as far as if we're talking about the initial design, because we're doing this a lot on Seventh Avenue right now. We're having a discussion about what we want to happen like now, and then like the discussion always goes into, what about 6 months from now? What about a year from now, kind of thing? And then it gets a little tangled. And then you start to go down the rabbit hole. And, but as far as, Jamie would probably have more to say about this than I would, but initially, I mean, I think this one pilot, piece could be, something that was basically a pure form of public art. It wasn't meant to advertise or promote anything in particular. As far as the theme, the theme could be the mosaic. I mean, we could play off of that. We could work with an artist, something that was more district, appropriate.
And what we do with the bears, and that's a different scale of things, that the artist just has, we give them the parameters of no low logos for the bears, you're making them to sell. And they've gotten really good. Terry's been really good with working with them for the last several years. But then they submit a concept. And then for the bears, Terry just checks on them and reviews, but the concepts could be something that's reviewed by the community character committee.
What about if you just do a solid? I mean, was that ever discussed, doing this one or the dark
So
one?
initially it was, and then when it was brought up that, oh, this company also does prime panels and they can be art pieces. That's when the public art component,
Well, if we just did it solid, we could also just get regular benches too.
You could get what?
We just get regular cheaper benches too. We're just doing,
Oh, because the main draw is that this could be public.
that was my opinion.
So that colorful one was just an example of what it might look like with something on it.
Right.
Okay, so when you order it primed either dark or light. Right? Those.
Correct.
Yeah.
Probably want to do like bears, go light, I'm guessing.
No, the only ones that will be painted are white. The other
This
ones
is-
just come that way
You know,
as furniture.
and Jamie's presented lots of different examples of seating. Those of us on the team have looked on our own time, other examples of seating. I see a lot of the same stuff out there and it doesn't really it doesn't excite me. And I think we'd be missing an opportunity for Seventh Avenue to go with something a little bit more outside the box, and
It's
it's
unique.
It's unique, and again, the public art component just basically makes it more interesting.
And you think,
And it's it's still low profile, even from an art standpoint. This is not a sculpture, this is not something in your face, this is something very, low to the ground, very low key, but people are gonna be sitting on it and they're gonna be looking at it, and it's another drawing point, and it also reflects, for me, from a design standpoint, and design is a rabbit hole. I mean, this board and the community character team could talk for hours about designs that you like and don't like, you know what I mean? And we've had those conversations, and I'm not saying we need to spoil those conversations, but from a pilot standpoint, I think consensus of the economic community character is that we want to get something up and running. And I know Jamie has spent enough time on this where I think we're ready to make a decision on a pilot bench with this design, with a public art standpoint that would be addressed in next month's community character meeting. And then we could report back to you guys. And that's
So if y'all think I'm against it, I'm not, but I will say that community character did not come to the final say, and we have skipped a meeting because of, we couldn't have it. And so community character as a whole is not bringing this forward. It's the desire to get it done that's bringing it.
Recommendation to move forward.
Right, and with
So-
this specific bench.
And what was the response from the team members on your recommendation?
You and for Nancy, that you're going like that.
It sounds like you think a significant portion with the T-Mobile thing, what, do you have an idea in your head of what potentially could get covered or?
As many benches as we would need,
Wow.
plus I believe I think it would be more than what we need for benches because the grants are $50,000. And so that would also cover
Wow.
signage.
I feel like we haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
That's,
It's true.
I think depending on if we get it, but then that would be able to cover,
I mean, your grants and stuff. So
Yeah,
Do you
I
think
feel
it's a strong issue?
yeah.
And that's only if it's painted.
I feel like it's just a stronger application that way. If you're just applying for plain old metal benches, then what's the appeal on that for funding? Well, maybe that should be a service that we already provide for benches as it is. And just a preface, if we wouldn't have had budget cuts for the streetscape, there would already be benches that are like the ones that are on Main Street out there.
Which are a lot less expensive than these, but you have the Friends of Downtown money that's,
Yeah, this wouldn't be MSD dollars for this pilot. It would be Friends money from event income.
And, everybody, you all know I work too much, which means I'm down there more. So the district has changed quite a bit.
It's exciting.
It's exciting, it's vibrant, it's brought a ton of energy back into the district as a whole. And this is one of the reasons why I'm such a proponent of this and thinking outside the box and doing something a little bit different. There's nothing obtrusive about this design. There's nothing that says to me, oh, we're trying to be Charlotte, or we're trying to be. Okay, this is something that's cool and different. It's recycled materials. It has a long shelf life, and it's also a canvas for public art. I think it's a win-win. But
Like a lot of boxes.
it does, and you can focus on the cost, but there's already conversations about how that cost could possibly be offset. And also, working with a company like this, like I've looked through their website, they're very legit. I mean, they've got a lot of different pieces and all their pieces really kind of fit together. So we were talking about like, ooh, we're looking at other designs with, more canopies, like what if we did this out on the plaza? But working with one manufacturer, so you have that continuity in design, which is one of the things that we've been talking about a lot with streetscape, is the continuity of the design. And you guys, when you look down the street, you see that continuity. That was intentional. That was completely intentional. So this just adds to that continuity without distracting. It just adds to it. So
It's in so well.
it does.
So am I hearing everybody in here correctly that you guys are in favor of following the staff recommendation?
Yes.
So that would be my next question. Is, Jamie, are you looking for a motion from this board
Yeah.
to basically agree with the staff recommendation to go ahead and make the decision for this bench design? And then the
The character committee can
committee character will pick this up in next month's meeting and we will look at artists.
vote to place the order.
And then we will go back to you guys.
Said that this happened in unity.
We have met
So,
4 times.
yeah, it's come, I don't know if it's gonna get a
I
unanimous.
just want to overstep that group in saying yes.
I don't think we're
They're not
overstepping.
all- It's like,
We can't wait for them to meet for 4 months for purchasing one bench.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will never have any benches on that street.
And keep in mind, this bench is heavy, it's not permanent, it's not installed into the sidewalk, so. But to kind of like address your concern, as far as community, like being unanimous on community character about that bench design, I don't know if we get there. I mean, we might get there after a couple more
It's
meetings.
never gonna be unanimous.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be unanimous.
But we can't wait on that.
Right. When we look at the alternatives that we looked at, they're all very, very
Which is-
traditional,
Just
traditional
begs the
seating
question,
that doesn't allow for public art. It doesn't.
I'd like to make a proposal that we accept
well,
that.
that just begs the question, though. You have a community character. It hasn't come to an agreement. I am not trying to be a person, but you're very, 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 very much in favor of this, and Nancy is, and other people are interested in it. It was just that it wasn't 4 meetings talking just about a bench. I mean, we're working on public art, we're working on a lot of other things. If the choice of this committee is to go ahead, then by all means, let's go ahead. But I don't know if that's a precedent you'll set if you get another committee that doesn't come to an agreement or something. That's all I'm saying. We're just the subcommittees are advisory to Downtown Advisory Board, which is advisory to the city. So Downtown Advisory Board thinks it's time to move on with the advice of our staff, wonderful staff support, leadership, then by all means, move
So
on.
what if we do this? What if we present it to, in this board? If someone entertains a motion, if this board approves this, that would be a recommendation to community character, a recommendation to staff to go forward, and then community character would pick it up in a couple
I'll
of
be
weeks.
real honest, friends. I think she needs to just do it.
Well, then just,
I mean,
So one bench, guys.
Like,
and I understand,
I think,
I understand your concerns. I really, really do. And I'm not saying that I'm right and Jamie's right.
I mean, I'm president of Art League. I'm not opposed to art. I mean, by any means. I'm just saying it never coalesced as a group. So
Right.
it's come to this
But the
point. then-
email went out to describe that.
Right, and
that-
you only got 2 responses from it, but so it's just come to the point, which is okay, that it's gonna be the Downtown Advisory Board and staff to move forward, but I just, it's just, you set a precedent if you don't like what your subcommittees.
It's a compromise because they couldn't come to a conclusion, and so our compromise is by one.
Yeah, I mean,
Do the head.
Putting it off to the next week.
like I told Mark, at next month meeting, we sit together and we have not made a decision about this. I don't know if we would get it again, unanimous decision. So
Okay,
we can
so-
take a vote, on it. We could, we can take a vote right now on it,
Yeah,
but
so,
we are talking about, to put it in perspective, we're talking about one bench.
yep.
And the public art component, when Jamie made me aware of it, that's when I went 100%. Okay, I wasn't 100% to begin with, but I was, as soon as I realized that this style of seating is very unique in the fact that it has a template there for public art that I've seen in no other type of public seating. To me, that was just like, oh, done deal. That's fantastic. That adds a little bit of a component, like, you know, what Jamie was saying, we don't have a lot of space for public art.
Okay, it's a bench.
Sculptures or
Let's
whatever.
move forward. I understand.
All right.
We have a motion.
Let's vote.
Nancy made a motion.
So Nancy has made a motion to, basically,
Accept the,
motion, we'll go ahead and make the, please make. the
accept the recommendation from the staff.
Thank you. All right. Now the fun part. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, make note that Mark Cabo is opposed.
Would there be a possibility of opening it up for as a contest for the public art as to?
Community character, we'll talk about that next month, but that's a good recommendation. Application.
I don't know if this goes back to your historical perspective of,
No, I mean,
if you
What-
open it up, then people, making
could
sure
do
that
like-
people stick to what
Right.
they decide.
you could do like you do for the bear and seek the highest sponsor, let them do it. Then it takes it out of your hands.
We'll have time between the time that the bench arrives and
Yeah.
then. it's-
So I don't know, I'm not sure the protocol on this, but since Mark, since you're the only may on that one, would you feel?
Yeah,
Why?
I just don't want, with the way the city's growing and. Listen, like I said, I don't have really, you have much more time in this. I just don't want it to be at a point where we don't come into a decision, and city council is like, well, they haven't made a decision, we're just going for it. I don't think we should be in a point where if that group has not come to a vote on it yet, then it shouldn't be brought to us to make the decision whether it's 1 or 6. That's my only point. It has nothing to do with the design. It has nothing to do with the type of bench. It's purely to do with the structure of order. And if we're sort of overstepping another group that is in charge of this, then what's to say city council will overstep us if we ever come to a decision on a recommendation? That's my only.
Okay, thank you.
Well, of course, city council does what they chose to do. They're the elected officials, and I understand that, and they're the ones making the ultimate decision.
But we want them to make those decisions based on recommendations from the separate boards. That's why we give up so much of our time to volunteer, to be part of the community, to be part of Main Street, to put in the effort for these benches on 7th Ave. That's the only point, the only reason why.
And, you know, we could wait till next month's meeting to make any final decisions and then come back to you all, but, you know, also Jamie put out a very, you know, a very detailed email and got 2 responses from committee members. So for me, it's like, well, there was a deadline there. We did have a deadline actually for, the committee gave ourselves our own deadline for submitting different alternatives to Jamie for her to look at. After all that was fed to her, her recommendation, and she received 2 responses from the committee. So committee's not doing their job.
Well, that's because, in all fairness,
I mean,
it was never a final decision. We need to move on to the next subject, but people probably didn't respond because we never came to a
well,
cohesive
the response could
decision
have been,
at the
could have
committee.
been, I agree with your recommendation, or I don't agree with
You followed
your,
it.
and that's what Jamie was looking for.
Feel free to vote the way that you want to vote these items.
Yeah.
It's just a vote.
That's
Yeah.
We don't have to be unanimous on everything. I voted nay on things and I'm all off from the article. I've got it.
All right, so if there's, unless there's anything else, I would suggest we move on from that one. We do have a motion. All right, anything from economic vitality?
Yes, so Economic Vitality met last week, Blue and Stephanie held down the fort for us. And so Stephanie, have reviewed with Economic Vitality. Oliver was there. Anybody else from the board at that meeting? Oliver was there, Vaughn maybe? There was a few people who were there. So this was related to, what we've been talking about with the vacant building inventory and ordinance. And I'll pull up your presentation. You can go ahead and talk, I'll get that.
So I think the whole thing, you guys are welcome to walk with us. I just didn't wanna take the whole time to do the presentation, but I'm gonna give you a summary and talk to you about what the economic vitality team gave to our committee gave to me as feedback. So we of course looked at the vacancy registry, which was a request that came out of the NH comp plan. Plus, it was also discussed in this committee about something that we were very interested in looking at. And I did a lot of research on that. So I looked at a total of 17 towns, cities in North Carolina. The reason we chose to stay within the state of North Carolina is that we are a Dillon's rule state, which, to give you a quick sum of it, means that we have to be granted the permission to do it. It's different than, as long as it isn't prohibited, we can do it. So there's a difference, right? We have to ask for permission instead of asking for forgiveness. So there's a reason why we only looked at North Carolina. Not because we don't believe that there's other cities or counties that are really vibrant. We wanted to make sure that it was something that was actually doable. So what I did was I came and looked at some of the things that we know about the city. We have about 120 buildings that are vacant. Of course, vacant buildings are a drain on the community. It contributes to blight. Certainly is not giving us additional tax revenue. What we might not be aware of is that Hendersonville's vacancy rate is between 10 and 12%. And I'm sorry, I can't be more precise. We're really trying to nail down some of the upper buildings and some of the offices that we just don't have a full plot out. We're working on it, though, I promise. So the vacancy registry itself is really in its infancy. And what I found was that a lot of the cities and towns that were currently using it were at a vacancy rate that was closer to 30%.
Wow.
So really a different, I think it's a big sledgehammer for, what it is that we're doing. But I do believe that we need to address it. I just don't know if the vacancy registry is the correct way to go. But we did get clearance. You do have a potential of doing it. We said that we could. We are going to have to create a process to do it, of course. And considerations that I think you need to be aware of is that it would take about 8 to 10 months to even get off the ground. It doesn't address underutilized properties, which is definitely an issue that we have. It would also need to be codified by the city council, and we need to create an education program in order to go forward with it. Give you a quick view of the cities and towns that I went through. Probably the closest one is Kings Mountain. But Kings Mountain, we're kind of known for just kind of going rogue a little bit. They're not afraid to kind of break the rules. And I just don't feel like we're those kind of people where we have a different mindset.
Stephanie, I have one question.
Yes.
When you're talking about vacancy, does that mean that whole building is vacant or maybe just the upper level or?
Both.
Both.
So the vacancy registry would only address completely vacant buildings. So we definitely have a mix of underutilized buildings, which is something that is definitely a push for the downtown team to activate. So what we found out is going through this process is that probably a better way for us to go is to look at a commercial building list. And we already have information deposited in different departments. We have to figure out a way to consolidate it. So the fire inspection, the fire marshals actually have a pretty extensive list of buildings that are vacant. They have some partial pieces. The water department has buildings that are underutilized, that are having zero usage on water and sewage. Kathy has some pieces. We've collected some pieces. So I think that going this route could be expedited. And I think it would give you a lot of things that we're looking for. First of all, code enforcement could actually begin this fall. We've hired a second, Blues department, they've hired a second code enforcement officer. He's in the process of being trained. have lots of experience. We could begin to address the vacancy registry, underutilized properties first. There was a request from the economic vitality team to focus on Main Street and Seventh Avenue first. I do think that we need to take into consideration that there are some properties going up Asheville Highway that are definitely an eyesore. There's a lot of movement that's happening right now on Spartanburg Highway. I don't know if we need to be adding fire to that. It seems to be going pretty fast and from my perspective. And then considerations, we would still need to create a control process bridge that information. Yes, sir?
What classifies it as vacant? Is it a month, 2 months, 6 months? Is it just empty?
You know, I think first of all, I would say empty, Mark, and then I think we have to qualify it, right? I think you have places that turn over like that aren't gonna be on our registry, right? Like somebody took the Christian Science Reading Museum before the people had even moved out. I wouldn't consider that a vacant building, even though we haven't been necessarily getting revenue from a tax perspective. There's been activity, right? And then Erica also pointed out, we have a vacant building, Scotty's, the old Scotty's jewelry. She's in the process of getting that together, so I think we need to figure out a way to denote those types of properties. But we have places that have been vacant for a very long time, and then we have ones that are up for 2 months and then they're gone. I don't know if we can ever get a restaurant to actually function where Tarpons was, because I think it's been 4 restaurants since I've been here, and it's been vacant for probably about the same time since then. I think there's a lot to be said there. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. I just didn't know if we had
Yeah.
there was a decision on a clear expectation for what.
Yeah, I think we would like to address not only vacant buildings, we want to address buildings that are underutilized. Considerations, we're gonna need to create an internal process to bridge the sources of information. A recommendation from the Economic Vitality Committee was to host community conversations to let people know that we're going to be enforcing the commercial maintenance code. It's already in existence. We have not been as forceful or as to the T of holding business owners and property owners accountable for that, but it's there. It's been there the whole time. And then we would need to create an education campaign to inform the property owners of the new process. Because you don't want to spring that on somebody, right? Yeah.
Are some of is there one owner that owns a lot of these, the same owner that owns a lot?
No, it's like a little mix, of everything. I think Bob has a couple, Youngblood over here. GL properties. Everything, right? It's like a little bit of everything.
It's like 20 years.
So I didn't give you an updated list of what Jamie and I have been able to put together, properties that are available on Seventh Avenue and Main Street, or in the Main Street district, I should say. And I have been going through what the fire department has been able to send over to me. And it doesn't match up apples to apples, but that doesn't mean, I just need a little bit more time to finesse it and make sure that I'm getting the information out of it that we need. So the implementation, an action plan for implementation would be to host community conversations about the new focus. The law is there. You've always been required to follow it. We just need you to know that we have a new focus and we want you to understand why there's a need for us to do it this way. We of course need to continue to consolidate the information that's coming from all of the sources internally. Send out a letter to the property owners, compile photos, and documentation, schedule inspections, document status updates, and then we can go through the process of hopefully having the business be in compliance, right? Like the goal is compliance. Compliance is easy. Compliance means that there's not what's gonna come next, right? So what happens when Kathy and Eric go out? this is what they're gonna be looking for. This is not a complete list. I wanted to give you the highlights of the things that they're gonna be looking for. There's 26 items that are listed in that code, and it's 12.4, 12.40. So there are things that are going to, you know, you might not think that it's the exterior. There's a lot of things that are interior. Things that, if your building is losing its integrity, can also affect your neighbors. Especially in these buildings that are downtown where you're sharing walls and ceilings and all kinds of other things like that. So, these are the types of things that we're gonna be looking for, but like I said, the list is not, complete. And then what happens when you're not compliant? So this list, the Economic Vitality Board told me it was way too small. So I broke it up into bigger pieces. So we went from this, where Phil was like, cannot even read that. And I said, I got you, Phil, I will make it readable. So, you know, there's 9 steps to the process, and really it's about, making sure that we're giving the, property owner a fair warning. You know, if the code enforcement officer finds that there is an issue, they're gonna have to issue, you know, they're gonna have to get an administrative warrant to actually enter the property and go through the process. The owner can contest it, then we have to have an administrative hearing. We go through that whole process. So it's not like a shut and close deal, but of course, at the end, I have you in compliance. Because I feel like everybody wants to be like me and walk on the sidewalk and be compliant. I learned that about myself, is that I know it's a challenge authority, which is thing I've learned a lot. So the things that I got from this process for city council to consider is instituting a business license. Now, we are not in the state of North Carolina allowed to have a business privilege license, but we are allowed to have a business license process. And a lot of the things that we found as we were having the community conversation between our departments is that we don't always know when businesses move. We also don't know if there's been a changing in the building, because we don't have somebody who has to go through this process. And we feel like we can catch a lot of those. I think it could also give city council an opportunity to identify businesses that are located near sensitive areas, such as schools or religious institutions. I'm just kind of thinking of the cannabis dispensary on Main across from high school. Education campaign to explain the benefits of instituting a business license program. I think you should tie it into the rollout of the tax notification. I think you have to incorporate the business license requirement for any type of business that you're doing with the city. You know, the intention isn't to collect a lot of money off of it, it's to cover the administrative part. Well, you're not gonna get rich off of $20 or $30.
When they cancel their business license, that's when the fire department went around and started doing all their inspections. They're having to walk in somebody's buildings, $150 or $200 to make up for the $180,000 that the city lost. So it is all one.
Well, that money that ship sailed in 2016. So this proposal is not a business privilege proposal. This is a business license to let us know where people are going and what the business are going to be like. It won't be tied. I would not recommend doing that. I don't think we'd be able to do that. But you are legally allowed to have a business license. Did I explain that, Chris? Okay. Good, I want to make sure that we're clear about that. We're not allowed to do that. Remember, we're a Dillon's law state, so if we don't have the right to do it, we're not allowed to do it, okay? So the best practices from the vacancy registry that I would also recommend would be to have a key holder requirement for somebody who is, you are a property holder, you do not live within the city limits, that you have to have a key holder that can answer to the property within 2 hours. And I think that would eliminate a lot of the issues that we have seen with people not being able to get inspected, also not being able to have code enforcement come and view and talk to them for a lot of reasons. Additionally, requiring additional safety measures, sliding standards, and motion sensors for vacancy representation that I saw come out of the vacancy registry. everybody good? Sorry, I'm going really fast. Sorry. So the Economic Vitality Committee had several recommendations. So, they didn't necessarily recommend, specifically adopting the downtown style guidelines, but the, nightmare that Adam, or Aaron, I'm sorry, Aaron Adams like painted for me was a Starbucks being built on Seventh Avenue, right across from White Duck Taco. And as I was going through it, when I pulled out the Gen H, comp plan, it actually has, a style guideline for downtown. And that might be something that you guys would consider recommending to city council. And it has a lot of things that are in it. I have a copy here. You guys wanted to take a look at it, John? I highlighted some of the areas that coincide with what the Economic Vitality team addressed, like having drive-throughs. You can have a walk-up window, but not, drive-through service of any type or way or anything.
If I could ask a question on that, and you don't want a Starbucks across the street from White Duck Taco, but you wanna hold those people liable for not leasing up their building. If Starbucks is willing to lease their building, then they can lease it. And you don't want a Starbucks, then you put it back on, you're gonna penalize them for having a vacant building.
Oh, sorry, Chris, we're not advocating a penalization. What we'd like to do is be able to take the information and facilitate getting the buildings in compliance. We don't have a way to force somebody to rent out their building, right? We don't have that on the books. We haven't asked for that. But what I think that we would like to see coming from the Economic Vitality team is, right now you have a vacancy list, what are you gonna do with it? How are we going to convince those owners to lease out the property? And that's really the approach that we would be looking for.
Right.
I don't have a stick, Chris, nobody here has a stick. So the only thing that we would be looking at is a carrot, like how do you bring it into compliance? And how do we make it to where it's more comfortable for you to have somebody in the property than letting it sit there and be there?
I also don't think just because we have some of these style guidelines, which I've wanted to see for a long time, it's not gonna stop Starbucks from being able to be
They
here.
just wouldn't have a driver.
They just wouldn't be able to have a drive-through, which I don't think would stop them, to be totally honest with you. I know that, but I don't want chain stores either in downtown, but we can't stop that.
That was something else we talked about on this board. Nobody wanted chain stores uptown, downtown, whatever, they wanted, mom and pop type stuff. But, and that's fine, that's one thing, but the vacant storefronts on Main Street, Seventh Avenue, wherever, if we even talk about Lowe's as kind of a chain, but not a chain, they move, but let's just say, I don't know.
Optimum wants to open up a second building on Seventh Avenue.
Well, and that's exactly why we can't stop chain stores from coming in, because we already have chain stores on Main Street. So that's never gonna happen.
Okay,
We're never gonna be able to stop them.
yeah, so they'll have to adapt to, if you don't allow drive-throughs, I get that.
Yes.
Allow certain
So they
things,
don't
have to
choose.
Adapt,
And I feel like most of them will choose to adapt because they realize they'll still make money.
right, and I'm just saying that I know we don't want vacant buildings or anything. We want used and being maintained and all that kind of stuff. We just don't want to be able to stop somebody from having that opportunity to get a business in there, and then give everybody what they want, other than it might not be a business thing.
I think this vacancy thing is really good. The building across from us stayed empty for like
It's a long,
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years. It was falling apart. I actually brought an idea like this up to city council about 4 years ago, a member or two. And they felt that we couldn't do anything about it, because you can't fine people or whatever for having empty buildings. A lot of the buildings, that we have around here, they're not being taken care of. They're just run down. There's a building next door to us. They took the facade off. It's been sitting empty. It looks disgraceful. And if we did get someone to fill it up, again, for me, I'm totally against having a McDonald's on Main Street. I think it would throw a whole vibe off of the street. But if we could get these buildings to a point where
It looked, at least it was.
Business owner or a veteran business owner were to walk in and be like, oh, I could get in here at a decent rate. And I could make something out of it quickly and get it open rather than having to walk into a building. I mean, 8, 9 years ago, I tried to open a spot on Seventh Ave and the building owner, it was dilapidated, holes through the roof, and they're like, this is the rent and we have no responsibility for anything in it.
You know,
Piping, electricity, it's all on you. And I was like, how does someone do that?
in some communities where you buy a lot, you don't have to build, but when you do build, you have to have it done by 2 years or whatever. Is there not a possibility that when you tear down a facade, that there should be, can you put in, okay, you have 2 years, you gotta fix this. You can't just leave it like this indefinitely. Is
That's where that commercial maintenance comes in.
will help with that.
Yeah, so really and Lou or Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but like what Chris is concerned about finding people for vacant buildings, that seems like that's probably not gonna be something that's gonna be proceeded with. But really enforcing the commercial maintenance that we already have in the books and having a better understanding through having a well-preserved registry of the properties through fire inspections and whatnot would give us the ability to track that better and have better tracking for it. Cause was there anything, so it's really the commercial maintenance side of things.
Yes, and I think honestly, what you're gonna find out is that as you have more properties that are prepped and ready for rental, the market rate is going to level itself out. Right now, there's only X amount of buildings that are available, right? They're not in good condition. There's a lot of them are not in good condition. The ones that are in good condition, by the way, keep getting rented out immediately. So, what I didn't realize when I first started this position is that we don't have an issue with people wanting to go into those buildings. The problem is that we don't have people that can afford to go in and fix up the building and start the business and be a local business owner. Because the business, the property owners are not putting that investment into this. But they have an obligation to do that. We have the maintenance. We just haven't been enforcing it to the level and the extent that we all feel like it should have been. So we want to address that. I think we need to give the property owners and business owners an opportunity to know that it's coming, right? And then go forward, and I think you're gonna find that a lot of our issues that people who live in Miami control property and don't care what the property looks like. It's now gonna be a little bit more uncomfortable for them to just collect the rent, right? They're gonna have to have a local property manager. They could, if we can get this passed through, city council. And I think the intention is to draw more people in and to have more of those businesses in. But if we leave it like it is, I think you're gonna end up with months, because who else can come in and afford to renovate the property to the extent that it is. I feel like the city gets the rap for the parking.
If I may say one other thing, some of the buildings that are big, I think the one next to you is a pretty big building. And when you go to try to lease that out, even though the price per square foot is a pretty low price per square foot, there's a lot of square feet.
Yeah.
And I think where some of the give and take should probably come in is from the city in not requiring a lot of bringing everything back up to today's code. If somebody only wants, 1,400 square feet of a 18,000 square foot building, let them do that. Let them work with the restrooms, let them work with the hallways, let them work with all of that stuff. So it makes it more enticing to somebody that wants to put this smaller store in. There is space available, but they can't afford to hold 18,000 square feet. I think that's where a lot of these big buildings are having a hard time being able to be rented out. Because it's just so hard to bring it back up.
Question for you, Nate, on that. Are those things that would be and by you I meant Lou. Is that city code or is that more of like ADA and fire code that you're talking about?
I think
Okay,
So I'll jump in now, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm the developer of the community developer of the city. Couple of things, number one, I'll temper what to expect from the commercial maintenance code. The commercial maintenance code isn't a correct this building for lease by a tenant. It's a health and safety, like your building is to the public and needs to be repaired so as to no longer be a danger to the public. Like it is not, this is a state which highly values the property rights of property owners. And does not look sort of fondly upon government telling property owners what to do. So there's a lot of things that we have to establish before we can push a property owner to do something. And even in those situations, one potential outcome is the property owner continues not to do anything, that the city's options are to do it themselves, which requires financial commitment, and/or demo buildings, which we don't necessarily want to do unless the building's a real problem. So just want to kind of temper that. I do think that there's a power there. I do think that we have been addressing complaints on the commercial maintenance code. And what we're really talking about doing is being a little more proactive with that. So pushing on properties that are going to be problem properties. I'll also note that that will likely start with stuff that we had impacted by. So we've got some number of properties out in the community that we're going to have to address that are related to that event. A couple of other things I would note, we really don't have a way, and there's no authority given to say you can't keep this vacant. Like property owner who wants to keep a property vacant can keep a property vacant. Now we can say you can't let it deteriorate, and that's really what we're talking about. It's like not, and buildings do deteriorate. It's just, they don't, buildings want to be lived in, the longer they're vacant, the more things fall apart, plaster falls off, and water gets in and nobody's there to see it, and things start to deteriorate. So we do want to make that easier. But I think those two things are really important. We're, you know, very serious about having the list, you know, having the commercial vacancy list. To your question earlier, Mark, I think that what we're really going to be looking at the ones that have been on there for year in, year out, right? Because we know there are some that are like that. And we all know what they are. We can all name the buildings that we're talking about. There's only so many of them, and they've been vacant for extended periods of time. And that's not always because there's not interest in the properties. So, you know, what does that look like? Chris, to your comment more broadly, I think design standards, new development doesn't change. We can't control what businesses. I know we've talked about the chain thing. The city has no authority to say that one business over another can or cannot go in. It doesn't. We don't differentiate between a chain-owned LLC and a mom and pop LLC. So in terms of like a regulatory authority for that, it doesn't exist. It does exist for design and building footprint and things like that. So we can say no drive-throughs. We can do design standards for a new building that comes in. So, you know, if, for instance, that I'm using an example that I hope does not come true, but you have a chain restaurant that comes in and wants to move right downtown. You can have design standards that say, well, if you want to be here, it's got to look like this. You can't build your Ryan's, standard Ryan's that you build out by the highway. I'm using an example that hopefully is like here to show up. You can't do that downtown, right? So.
The McDonald's in the Biltmore area and a lot of businesses in that
Yeah.
Biltmore area are built to a certain standard and it's not your typical.
Hilton Head has a lot of this stuff.
Super high end standard and right more. And I think a lot of what you're talking about, which is actually I mean, the county enforces the building code. And I don't honestly, I know we've talked rehab code in the past when it comes to building code, but there are only so many things that I would even know where to start with on that. We're not building this. So I'm not sure what the rules are there, but certainly something that we could look at. So
Could this have ultimately saved that building that was on the corner of Locust? I mean, isn't that also part of the goal? So you don't have more situations like that where we're, I don't know, who paid for that? Did the building owner pay for that, or was it the city that paid for that?
that was. We.
You mean Locust and 7?
Yeah, Locust and 7.
Yeah, so that was the little bank building.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I was gonna bring that up because I don't have a lot to say about this. I think there's smarter people in the room that can talk, but, you know, it seems to me like there's several different layers here and like identifying the priority projects or the priority parcels where there is a state of blight or there's a state of disrepair that has not been enforced. I mean, we had that on 7th Avenue for years and it was never enforced. What changed on 7th Avenue was we had essentially one developer come in and enforce it by buying properties and improving these properties. So that was nothing to do really with the city, but what I see the takeaway here is that by getting property owners more engaged with the city and in compliance, you know, bigger, you know, the bigger definition of that word compliance, then it creates a situation where, you know, buildings that are in the state of disrepair need to be, you know, enforcement needs to be looking at that. And then buildings that are just maybe too big and they're looking for an ideal tenant and they, you know, like that, they could be working with the city on that one as well. But as far as 7th Avenue goes and the building that you looked at, I'm not sure which one it was, but you know, that was the story down there for a very long time. You have property owners that own properties that were in a state of blight, been vacant for years and years and years and years, that said, we're not gonna do anything. So therefore, they attracted a certain type of tenant. Who's gonna go in there and spend a bunch of money to fix up somebody else's building? So the tipping point in 7th Avenue was really a developer coming in and redeveloping buildings that were in a state of disrepair. And the bank building, yes, that building was vacant for a very long time. And had some serious structural issues. So, Lyle Sharif, who bought that parcel, he looked at it and the assessment was that it was unfortunately a tear down. So.
Are we voting on a recommendation from this?
I'm not sure. What do we, what do we need as far as, what would y'all be looking for as far as next steps?
Yeah, I mean, recommendation doesn't hurt, like, there is, the board desires to do so. I think Stephanie, as a component of her, internship, will be presenting this to city council, because our interns always do a council presentation. But if there's a desire by the board to make a recommendation one way or the other, I think that would be helpful. If there are questions about that for me, I'm happy to try and answer.
Does signage come under the broad category of design standards?
It is actually listed in the downtown design, standards, signage is in there.
So are those standards set in terms of size,
No, but I would tell you, so,
the art is to be this high?
yeah, I mean, you can manage new signs. I can tell you that signs kind of that are up are not going anywhere unless somebody decides to take them down. Under the way the current things are. But yeah, a lot of those design standards are gonna have the biggest impact on new development. They're not gonna suddenly change any existing.
Well, after one would certainly think it's great to move forward on something that will do anything to help improve, you know, the condition of vacant buildings and at least to bring them up to safety codes and be able to enforce compliance when they don't, which is probably, I mean, we're a nice southern town. We don't try to really push people, but at some point.
I agree with you from a safety standpoint. Somebody needs to be paying attention that the facade doesn't fall off onto the street when somebody's walking by. Or a boarded up window doesn't get unboarded and fall into the facade when somebody's walking by.
And that's been highlighted in this presentation that basically by the fall, like its first steps would be looking at enforcement and engaging property owners from.
Well,
enforcement
yeah, I think
standpoint.
education
For education, right.
from what the economic vitality team and what we discussed is that, well, and I think everybody saw it is like, hey, you don't do it with your meeting, you return and not tell people what you're doing. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. So we definitely wanted to send a letter out initially, but the recommendation from the Economic Development Board or committee was to actually have an open education conversation about it. Let people come and ask questions and talk about it, talk about the commercial maintenance code, which is currently enforceable. We just haven't probably been looking at it to the T that we feel like we should. And we would like to begin doing that, but I don't think you ever, I don't like to surprise people. I'm not a surpriser. I'm compliant and I don't like to surprise.
Do we know
I
in
think there's a lot of effort that has been put into this, I think it's obvious, I think it's super thorough and I think it's fantastic, and I would suggest that we put a vote to have it definitely looked at more by our board and city council to definitely involve something like this in our city.
From a safety standpoint and building dilapidating, this board, I believe, had facade grants going on, and people don't really realize what bad a shape their buildings are in. And we approved a facade grant not too long ago, and it wound up being more of a maintenance repair grant, because when they got into it, they didn't realize how bad everything was. I can't remember, it was story to build or something. Anyway, there was a lot of deterioration that I don't think they realized until they got in there trying to put the facade on, and then it became a bigger thing, which, from a safety standpoint, buildings would fall apart, like we all know.
So I would suggest just, if somebody would be willing to make a motion that this, well, can I make a motion?
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion. So I will make a motion that this board is in agreement of staff's recommendation and of their presentation. In particular interest to this board is that we are looking at dilapidated properties from a maintenance standpoint, and that's something that's very much on your to-do list. So I'd make that motion. All right. All in favor? Any opposed?
Excellent work, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
And Chris, I'll put the notes in there too.
All right, so everybody in the interest of time, we're going long, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Unfinished business, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I've got a couple of updates on some things. I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention, or actually a question on one. We've gotten a lot of or I've gotten some complaints, and I've just noticed it personally, that we've had a lot of people playing instruments on the street with very loud speakers. It's been really loud, and it's not, in our current ordinance, there is no rule on smart buskers for amplification.
that wasn't fall just under the regular noise ordinance?
No,
Because I had the police called on me.
Buildings have, businesses have.
buildings do,
I mean, I was also told that buskers can only be on the corners.
correct.
They cannot have amplified music.
That's so the current ordinance says that buskers have to be on the corners, but there are no rules on amplification. And they have been very loud, and I've gotten complaints, and I've noticed them several blocks down.
It's all good.
Oh.
No, there was one on Friday night.
It's really loud, like you can hear them 2 blocks down the street sometimes, and there's more of them because some of them are seeing them, there's more coming. They can't plug into the outlet, so I've been watching to see if they're plugged in, but there's no enforceable rules on volume. And what we think is that the busker rule was probably put into place under the previous noise ordinance. And so it was never put in for the busker or street performers, but then the noise ordinance changed because I think it was just like a nuisance ordinance. And then now it's specific to decibel levels for businesses and buildings and property and homes. but not for out on the street. And so what my suggestion, and we could look farther in this, because I'm just bringing this up for the first time, is that we have a recommendation to add about amplification. Or electronic amplification, because and if y'all wanna review further, we can.
That seems pretty easy, pretty reasonable that there's.
I thought it was already in there.
If the
Yeah.
positions are performing, that we make a recommendation to council that they adjust that ordinance. To include new amplification.
Second. Good motion.
Right.
Some of the guys are cool.
No,
You know, it,
I mean, in the Target parking lot, yeah, it's
Electric guitar guy, he rips, but it is so loud.
that Main Street, just eating breakfast outside Mike's the other day, this was a truck driving by. It was so loud, you could hear it for
Is
6.
there any kind of ordinance against like the cars that drive by with speakers on the outside?
there is, but you'd have to call the police
And you have to catch them.
and they have to catch them.
I was just amazed how loud.
And they are working on installing the cameras on the streets, but, can we go back to the busker, and we had a motion second on that?
yeah, I'm
Second.
sorry. So we did have a motion vote.
What?
We'll have to take this to the city attorney, so she'll probably consider some different things that I can ask on that.
Yeah, motorcycles are really bad.
What was your question, Chris? What did you ask?
A bull-
Like a bullhorn or something,
Oh, that's
because you have an amp and you're playing a guitar, but then next thing I see, somebody's gonna be hollering at one of those singing or something.
Any kind of electronic radio.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure the city attorney will look at it and see what specific type of language.
It wouldn't even need amplification when somebody going backwards. Love those kids, but it's loud. They play good.
So just to recap, so there was a motion to recommend to council that the ordinance be adjusted to exclude any type of mechanical or electronic amplification for performers.
You're saying
To
zero,
include,
zero amplification.
yeah.
I'd say zero electronic,
Electronic,
because like you can't.
I mean-
You can't stop amplification from like a flute,
Yeah, or electric, acoustic guitar.
but once that plug into amps.
Right. electronic amplification, yeah. All right,
Anybody opposed?
they're all in favor, guys?
Aye.
Any opposed to that one?
Great.
All right,
Then we have in the agenda, and we can toss this to a committee. But I've included in the agenda, it was two-wheel parking. And so wanted to just do kind of a vibe check on thoughts for this. So
What is two-wheel parking?
Bicycle.
Like bicycles and motorcycles?
scooters, mopeds mainly. I mean, we have bike racks, but it's really, I think, more something with.
It's gonna open the doorway to have like bird scooters in Hendersonville.
let me
We already shot those down.
let me tell you what the proposal is. Y'all can tell me, let me tell you what the proposal is. Y'all can react to it, and then we can decide if it's something we want to move forward with. And this is just kind of the initial, there's a city's internal like bike and pedestrian committee that came up with it. So because of the abundance of bikes and even motorcycles, or they're not abundance, but more two-wheeled vehicles, they made a couple proposals, and it's in the agenda packet of like taking a parking space and creating more bike parking. What, after they had told me about it, what I had suggested was outside of Hannah's, because we already have issues with the crowded area there for sidewalk dining and seating. So that would keep a car out of that, because bike would take up less space for it. So, because that block is really the worst as far as space for seating there and the Mountain Deli side. And so it would be essentially taking one or two of those, I think there's 2 parking spaces at Hannah's. That would be taking those out to just have free bike and even motorcycle parking there. Nothing else is thought out necessarily for it, and so we could toss this to community character.
Did you say that would be free?
That's what the-
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, free, I mean, we could consider something else too. And so if this is something that we feel is worth looking at, I'd recommend it just goes to the community character committee.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Are these spaces, like, it's like a lot of the drawings, it was bicycles or it was mopeds and scooters, as far as like a full-size motorcycle, would these spaces accommodate that type of vehicle as well?
I think so, and that would be probably.
Nothing against full-size motorcycles, but it is kind of a different,
Those are big.
that's a different size. To promote a space that would be taken up by bikers.
Yeah, I think that would probably be warranted for further.
Oh.
Review
If they're striped a certain way, then, you know, it's obvious gonna,
yeah.
yeah.
With the acoustic trail open, we obviously have a lot more bicycles that want to come into town. So
Yeah.
we can come further up instead of Parkway down there.
Yeah, and there's.
Great idea. But speaking of, there's more bicycles on the sidewalk, just
That's part of what this would help try to.
riding on.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, as a
That-
motorcycle rider, I think that's a great idea. Where we put it should definitely be a discussion.
Mhm. Motorcycles different than bicycles, you're saying?
No, from motorcycles all the way down to bicycles, I think parallel parking against well, perpendicular parking to the curb is very efficient. You can fit, 4 or 5 motorcycles in one parking space, probably 10 bicycles. I think Main Street needs it. It's just where on Main Street and 7th Ave do we put it?
Well, you just recommended,
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, because those 2 spaces, although in front of Hannah's.
Hannah's and Mountain Valley.
There, personally, we get a ton of people that jump in there, in and out.
Yep.
And the bakery across the street does too. Those parallel spots. Now over by Mountain Deli, it's a little bit more, they're usually more open, but those 2 spaces are always in and out.
So that's good for cars then. Or,
But that's a discussion we could all,
Well, you also create an interesting conversation about paying for parking, because obviously it's.
and that's another thing we're gonna.
Like if I'm pulling my Harley up and I don't have to pay for parking, is that fooling the guy next to me, just has to pay for parking? I mean, bicycles are bicycles, if you have a bicycle, yeah, absolutely, I mean, one of the reasons why, one of the benefits of that is encouraging people to ride bicycles, but if you're pulling up in your Harley, I think you should pay for parking.
I think that'd be worth, if we're good with considering it, I would say the community character committee should take that on.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm gonna speed this up, unless there's anything else that's really important, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
so moved.
All right, thank you very much. And hey, everybody, very productive meeting, thank you for all your input, all your input.